Nuggets to open this conversation, but that's where we're going. So we'll be gentle with it, so to speak, pun intended. I know Brett Brown had said just minutes ago it was a game time decision, and he didn't mean that the people at Game Time decided. So do we know anything new on the stomach ailment of Embiid or what we might expect tonight?
I mean, the latest thing about Joel Embiid is he was on the court warming up. He looks bothered. He has an upset stomach. He did not participate in shoot-around today. Instead, he stayed away from the team and in the hotel. He's been drinking a lot of fluid, trying to settle his stomach. I would imagine for someone who has battled throughout the playoffs, just to be on the court through his knee, that he would not want to allow an upset stomach to keep him off the court. However, it's got to be so frustrating that if it's not one thing, it's another thing to bother him. And he certainly has his hands full with Marc Gasol, who was able to upset him and make him uncomfortable in game one. And Joel Embiid himself even said, hey, their two-star players came and showed up. I didn't. I have to be better today. So imagining, speaking with people within the organization too, there's a feeling Joel Embiid will be on the court, and there's certainly an understanding they need Joel Embiid on the court. One more thing to add, Amir Johnson has been activated tonight. It's not to say that he might get minutes, but if anything's going on with Joel Embiid, coach wants options from his big man.
All right, Amir activated, which means the cell phone will be turned off, we expect, and Joel will have a lot of Pedialyte, Roz, so we'll look out for that. In the meantime, defending Kawhi, it made everybody have an upset stomach who was watching this game in Philadelphia, but with the different bodies, it seemed like there might have been some success, quote-unquote, or more so, with Ben Simmons in that matchup. How much was that looked at as something maybe to pursue and look at again in game two?
First of all, Casey, you are on a roll tonight with the puns and the jokes. All right, well, so as far as Ben Simmons and Kawhi Leonard, first of all, Ben Simmons as a young player, at practice yesterday, I asked how did he feel after going up against him. He'd gone up against him in the regular season, but in playoffs and seeing that performance, he said, I admire that guy. I respect him. Seeing the way he plays both sides, relentless on defense, on offense, so skilled, it's actually something Ben even feels is possible for himself. But as far as defending Kawhi Leonard, who had a playoff career high 45 points. Look, a lot of those guys, Jimmy Butler after the game was like, I was right there. It was good defense. I'm going to do the same thing next time. But coach is saying one-on-one defense when a guy is just going to continue to shoot over the contested shot and make it is not enough. So what he wants is his team to play in crowds. Also to use physicality on him. They must get back on transition defense. And Coach Brett Brown said it might be a number of different looks just to make sure that Kawhi doesn't get a rhythm or a feel for any one defender in particular. Now, at practice yesterday, Ben Simmons did say he expects to be on Kawhi more today. As far as Ben Simmons' game, right? Kawhi Leonard, when he's on him, has bothered him traditionally. Ben Simmons was 7 for 8 from the floor last game. He only had 2 turnovers. He didn't turn over the ball much, but the problem was he didn't assist the ball so much. And I think when Ben Simmons is at his best, he's making others better. He's getting down, getting the team with pace and in transition and getting others going. So when you asked him how did he feel he played, he said, okay. One thing that will help Ben Simmons and their whole offense, all they're talking about is ball movement. They want more than 2 passes. They've been watching video, and the echoing statement is we're better when we get to 3 or 4 passes, and make their defense move, make their defense have to work, put pressure on them, tire them out that way, get them scrambling so then we can attack with more ease and not have to deal with their length and create some space for ourselves. And of course, the easiest thing you can do is get out and run. That way you don't got to deal with the setup defense. So these are the things they're trying to think about.
Hey Roz, Frank Vogel here. What are you hearing? Obviously, Philadelphia is a starting 5 dominant type of team, but what are you hearing about potential adjustments in terms of the use of the bench by Brett Brown?
You know what, that's something that they're figuring out as they go. First of all, in the first round of playoffs, that second unit was something that they were learning on the fly. Tobias Harris was saying, we're still figuring out who's coming in with what group, where our shots are coming from. They're learning. I mean, remember, this group is very new to each other. Now in this series, they were thrown a curveball. I mean, not a curveball, but an unfortunate bit of news with Mike Scott being out. And the way coach talks about Mike Scott, he's like, hey, that's an adult in the room. That's a guy who's mature. That's a guy who's versatile. That's a guy who's long. He could do a lot of different things for us on both ends of the court. We need him. So right now, I think coach, we asked him that before the game, and he said, we're figuring things out. We might go younger. His big question, he said, is once we get past that first 5, do we need more on defense or do we need more on offense? And then that's how he makes his decision.
Roz, hi, it's Derek Fisher. What are you hearing in Toronto about the Raptors' potential Game 2 adjustments? It's easy for the winning team to think they can come back and do the same things they did in Game 1. But what are you hearing around the town about the Raptors also making the adjustments, trying to be better?
That's a cool question, actually, because I was talking with Nick Nurse, and he said something. He said, I just kind of want Game 1 to hurry up and get done so that I can know what the situation is, and then I can adjust accordingly. Like, coming into Game 1, Coach Nurse was like, we got to just play our game and see. Now is the chance where you can see what worked, what didn't work. A lot worked for them that game. So coming into this game, he actually shared with us, he's expecting that they're going to be trying to take away Pascal Siakam and be more aware of him in transition, try to take that away, aware of his drives. So what he said is that's going to open up opportunity for him to be a great decision maker and a passer. Does he have that part of his game? He's been showing so much improvement. Hey, can Danny Green knock down that shot? Because that's probably something's got to give, right? He's expecting that Joel Embiid, should he play, is going to try and body and strong arm his way down into inside and close to the rim. He said, you know, in past games we've studied, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, when things are not going their way in game or from one game to the next, that's usually the answer. The guys try to just get in there and get inside because they are big. So we are expecting that, and he expects that they're going to try and manufacture opportunities to get out and run in transition. He knows that's something that they're going to try and do. And then again, he's expecting extra attention on Kawhi Leonard, but he too was really impressed with the effort that Kawhi put on in Game 1.
All right, Roz, we know tough to swallow for Embiid and company, that Game 1 performance. We'll see what happens Game 2. Thank you so much. Enjoy. We'll have, obviously, the broadcast down the hall over on TNT. A double dip to get into, including on the back end, Dame Dollar. A bad shot? Not so much. Waving goodbye, but hello to a new challenge. We'll take a closer look.
He was Defensive Player of the Year, so, you know, when you add that, and they got two former Defensive Player of the Year, so he just takes that whole defense to another level.
You got to give credit to Marc Gasol. He was the Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. I thought Serge, you know, came in and did a good job athletically, especially, you know, making it difficult for Joel. And I got to help him more. You know, I think getting him into the post different ways and freeing him up a little bit more than we did is something that I have to look at. But I give Toronto credit for their defensive effort tonight.
We had to say, obviously, Raptors are way better than the Nets, but we're down 0-1. I'm sure we're going to come back. We're down 0-1. Had a shot a bad percentage, so I'm definitely going to adjust. Everybody's going to adjust.
Team shot just 40%. I mean, from three, they were not great either. J.J. Redick had 5 of the three-pointers for the team. But inside, a difference maker anytime. He had a big body, and he's a guy who can play defense when he locks in. And Gasol, coach, was locked in. What did you see from Game 1? His impact, this is why they made the trade, right?
There's no doubt. And if you're going to choose defenders throughout the league of who you want matched up on Joel Embiid, Marc Gasol is going to be in the top 2 or 3 of those guys. He has length. He's got strength. And at this point in his career, he has great savvy. You see in some of these clips here, this is the one post-up that Joel gets the ball deep, and look who's sitting right in his lap, the other Defensive Player of the Year in there digging. So, you know, they did a great job as a team, but you see some examples here of how Marc does a great job. Here's an example of his strength. Okay, Joel's trying to go into a back down, and most guys in the league, he's just powering through them, but he can't get past Gasol. Forced to shoot the jump hook a little further out than he's used to, and you see the miss. Okay, here's another situation. Joel likes to live at the free throw line. He does a sweep move to try to pick up the foul, but Gasol's got the savvy and experience to keep his hands high and not foul. You
know, the other thing is that you want to be able to trust your teammates in those spots. And you look at the highlights right there, and you saw Korkmaz doing like the wave down the airplane, and Bolden twice looking for that 3. Combined, they were 2 of 8. So it can't always be Redick. And some of those spots, though, they're forcing you to want to get the ball out of Embiid's hands and outlet somewhere at the three-point line, but they haven't been able to shoot the ball well enough to trust those guys if you're Joel Embiid.
And that's the question mark for the great players in the league that always exists, right? We challenge them, we criticize them at times for not passing the ball or getting their teammates more involved. But it's also the teammates needing to earn that trust from your best players that when they do kick it out, you're going to knock down those open looks. In those clips, the supporting cast defensively with Kawhi Leonard digging on the one clip, Danny Green coming over baseline and forcing Embiid to spin back towards the middle. Those are all things that you can't underestimate in terms of, yes, Marc Gasol, but really smart defensive players next to him. And the Sixers are going to have a tough time figuring out how to crack that code.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing, too, where you kind of tie everything together is, Frank, when you sit there and you look at, even though Kawhi and Danny Green came in, system and culture the same as what Case had there, and you've got two great defensive players and a defensive player of the year, they're going to fit in. The other side, we saw only, 20-some-odd games all these guys even started together. Defense is about communication. When we go back kind of full circle at the beginning of the show, how much is that the difference maybe on the defensive side in some ways between the two teams, that communication on D?
Yeah, and both teams had midseason additions, so I mean, they're both on the same curve in terms of putting all that stuff together. But there's an experience differential between these two teams. Philly's a far younger team than Toronto is, and even though Mark's coming in midseason, he's able to pick up things and communicate, and the transition has been more seamless.
In the NFL, there's been that question for years of what is a catch. What is a foul? To be or not to be? No, really, what is a foul? Because I'm just asking for a friend, because we're not sure. This wasn't or was it? Complaints, controversy, questions.